Hello, 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 humans of the internet. Wow. That went well. Hello! Thank you, Dan, for the fart. I thought I'd turn the fart off, but apparently I have not. Enjoy. I'm not surprised by that. But hello, welcome to the first episode of Cafe and Co-Cast. Whoa! Yay!
Woo!
Let's go! I am joined by some wonderful people today for the Into the World of Fantasy theme. Ooh, yay, spooky. Hello, would you guys like to introduce yourselves? I know your names are below you, but...
No. Yep.
Oh. Okay, then.
Hello, I am Autumn. I use null void pronouns, and I am here to collect corks for my dragon.
Oh. Well, there we go.
I'm Brian.
Oh God. Hi, I'm June of Legion 27. I didn't come up with anything funny, and I'm terrible when put on the spot. This is going to be great.
You have a cool wizard hat on.
I do indeed have a cool wizard hat from RuneScape on. I've never played RuneScape. I'm a fake fan.
No.
Rhymes. Execution immediately.
Yeah.
No!
And
Hi, I'm Bri. I use they them. There's nothing really interesting to say about me, to be quite honest.
I call bullshit.
Bex, introduce me.
This is Bri, and they have, first of all, they have very cool coloured hair. They're very talented. They are a very, very, like, creative, like, acting. Whoa!
Yeah, I do musical theatre. That's something interesting about me.
There you go. That works. Yeah.
Cool.
I don't think people know who I am anyway, but you know.
Nah.
But yes. So the the whole thing of this is that it is very going to be very jank to the point that I was still setting it up like 2 seconds ago. But we're fine. So the whole idea is we'll have some discussions about things, and then people can ask some questions and talk about stuff, and then yeah, pretty much chaos.
It's a little bit of a vibe with friends, you know?
Yeah, pretty much. It's a whole chill. It's like bring your. We've kind of hired a little room at the top of the Chaos Cafe, and we just got some lights and stuff, and just gone. Yeah, let's do it.
I like how you've hired a room from yourself.
Faye.
Listen. I had to ask Rox. Okay, I had to. I had to go to the co-owner and go, "Hi, can I borrow a room for the evening?"
Then why were we smuggled in like big duffel
Yeah.
bags?
Yeah, you guys weren't, like, smuggled in a fridge?
No, I just took the portals in.
What? You got fridge treatment?
You guys get portal?
Well, yeah,
I've got way too many portals at the tavern.
yeah. Sometimes I appear in Autumn's Tavern randomly. Like one time I came through the closet. That was an experience. The other time I came through the ceiling fan. I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, that confused me as well, because we don't even have a ceiling fan in the tavern.
You do now.
Yeah, I know.
Disclaimer: the fridge is now broken. I must tell Rox to fix it. Anyway. Hello, CNT. How you doing? So, what is the first theme you guys would want to talk about to do with it? Hello, Briarke. You are definitely new here. You're not sat next to me.
Hi. I'm new here.
Welcome to the SummerRejects Twitch channel and the Cafe and Co-Cast podcast. Whoa.
Oh my god. I love it here. Can I stay here forever?
Yeah, sure.
I already have, so.
We have unlimited coffee. It's great. Yeah.
I mean,
Oh
I
my
tried the
God.
door 5 minutes ago, and
I
the
haven't had
handle
coffee
has
today.
broken. So, yeah, none of us are leaving.
I haven't had coffee today.
To get into this, let's talk about like what makes like a fantasy world like really immersive for you. Like what really draws you in.
Ooh, that is a good point to get in. And I feel like this is something that very much varies by the kind of medium you're going for. Like the thing, like obviously I'm quite interested in making my worlds immersive as a dungeon master and that sort of thing. It's going to be different for TV shows and similar. But something I heard a long time ago was like believable, not realistic, as like a principle for creating immersive worlds.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have to be realistic that you're riding giant eagles or whatever the hell. But it is believable to do so. Like the main thing brought up all the time with the Eagles and Lord of the Rings is why didn't they ride the eagles to Isengard? Not why the fuck are they riding giant eagles?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that sort of thing. That kind of reminds me of the idea of, Never-Ending Story. I don't know.
Yeah.
I loved that as a kid because it was like that whole thing that it wasn't believable, but it was at the same time. Like you can think about it in your brain and go, oh, that's so cool.
It's like
Yeah.
another thing that I really love is like really in-depth world building that isn't just like dumped on you, but it's just kind of told through people interacting.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I remember that's one of the reasons why I really love Terry Pratchett is a world with very few lore dumps, but like a lot of lore side hustles is the way I'd put it.
Side quests.
I love that term. That's amazing.
Yeah, a lot of lore side quests where it'll have like little tangents talking about various like guilds and things, and despite it being a ridiculous setting by its very nature, it is a flat disc on top of 4 elephants riding a turtle through the depths of space. That is the setting. That's the base point. That's the beginning of the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yet it functions on its own internal logic, like with the way its world kind of like flows together.
Yeah. Like I feel like there's kind of like two approaches to world building. Where like you can either bend like the physics of the universe around your story, or you bend your story to work around like the physics of the universe. And I feel like you get very different results depending on which path you take.
See, I like the idea of like with TV shows, for example, like this is the surprise Has Been Hotel, because that is. Oh my god, it's almost like we like it, Brian.
we really like Has Been Hotel. Who could have guessed?
Good context. Mine and Bry's Discord profile pictures are Has Been Hotel. But it's
oh my god, queer they thems like Has Been Hotel. What a fucking new story.
No.
Spoiler alert. Anyway, it's the whole concept of
quick run.
I like the concept of taking something from the real world and implementing it in a way that's creative.
Yeah.
So like with Has Been Hotel, it takes some concepts, and this is why a lot of people, like some people don't like it and it's got a lot of backlash, is because it has some real life concepts that you can relate to.
Yeah.
But has that fantasy twist on it where it's like, for example, it's hell in it. So
yeah.
So it kind of adds that kind of immersive element where there's something you can relate to but also escape from.
Yeah,
absolutely. Like it's all about hitting that balance. Like I mean that's throughout all the shows. Like take the Odyssey for instance. That is a story of gods and monsters and all kinds of crazy things, but like it's also the story of a sea captain trying to do well by his crew, of a husband trying to get back to his wife and son. Like there's very much like it's always people driven, and I feel like that's where some fantasy can fall flat if it kind of detaches itself too much. Like will the Florbadorb beat the Mangblab?
Florbadorb. That's gonna be a new stim word.
Yeah. New vocal stim unlocked.
Like it just when the story doesn't focus on anything that you can care about, if that makes sense. Like if there are two countries fighting in your fantasy world, like I said, there's a big war going on, that by itself, at least to me, is not by itself engaging. Like, okay, that's like almost a background piece. That's like a mountain or whatever, and it's a cool mountain, but I don't care about it. But like, if you add a reason for that, and it could be an incredibly stupid reason, like two nations are going to war over, I don't know, a runaway princess. Let's go with that. Then like that suddenly this entire conflict stops being just this mass background thing, and it's suddenly person focused.
Isn't that the story of Mario, like Bowser. Like,
Yeah.
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 I think it's important to have a human aspect to any fantasy, even if the characters themselves are not human. It is being consumed by humans exclusively. We need something to be able to latch onto.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Like you can have a story with good characters and poor world building, but you can't have a story with good world building and subpar characters.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
You need the human aspect because at the end of the day, you are creating this content for humans.
Yeah. Because like I feel like that's what kind of happened to like, do you remember like you know, around 2012 where like the young adult dystopia genre just completely just filtered out because it was so overwhelmingly saturated.
Oh, absolutely.
And it became so formulaic that no one wanted to read them because there were no characters there. It was just a different style of dystopia.
Yeah.
And that was the drawing point, but the characters were boring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like with that sort of dystopian thing, it's weird because there was the whole, around that time, I really got into the Children of Eden series. And Joe Graceffa's one, isn't it? Is it Joe Graceffa? Yeah, it was Joe Graceffa. I really like those 3 books. And the reason is because it was the dystopian future idea. And it was a similar idea of like separation and all that thing with the dystopian and there's different the elites and all that. But it was done differently in a way that the characters had so much substance that I wanted to know what happened next. I wanted to know what their story went. There was a lot of gay involved, but that's the idea of what you said, Bri, with the human emotions with it.
Yeah.
It kind of makes you go, oh, and there was a little bit of a love story, but it wasn't an oversaturated typical love story.
Yeah.
And it was really cool how it worked out. But that was the same time around when like the Hunger Games was happening and also Divergent was happening and things like that.
Oh yeah.
So it's weird because the first Divergent, to me, the books did it so well, but the films kind of felt off.
No, I agree. I love the books, but I can't sit through the films.
No, it kind of
they're not bad films. I just can't sit through them because my standards for the series are so high.
Yeah.
But like I have like such a weird thing where I didn't connect to the characters in the books in Divergent, and that just made me like hate the world building even more.
Yeah. That's happened to me a few times, yeah.
Yeah. Although, actually, while we're on the topic of, like, films and movies and books and similar, one thing that's really hit me in terms of world building is that I think the more condensed your medium is, the less world building you can do. Because pretty much, like, when you're doing something like a movie, it's not just to show a world, it's to tell a story. Same with anything, really. But with a movie, you're going to be dedicated to the plot points. You have a runtime, you have a budget, you need this movie to typically be less than 2 hours, typically about an hour and a half. And the plot is going to take up much of that. You can't really take much time up to go explore. Sometimes there'll be an offline or something that helps develop the world, but you can't really dedicate time to this. Compare that to something like, I don't even say something that really does world building good, but just does a lot of it. Something like Skyrim. Skyrim has actual books inside it. Like, actual fucking books. Not all of them are good, I'm going to say that. But, like,
but they're there.
Where you can spend the time it would take to watch probably the entire movie Marvel saga that currently exists. You can just spend reading random books in Skyrim, be it in-game smut to history stuff. Like,
I think Baldur's Gate 3 tried to replicate that as well, didn't they?
They did, yeah.
Like, there's a lot of like reading that you can do in BG3, and I actually do take the time to read basically anything that I find, which is why I'm still stuck in Act 1. I've had it since Christmas. I've got about 60 odd hours in the game, and I'm still in Act 1.
I've had it from before Christmas. I'm still in Act 1.
Yeah.
I'm also still in Act 1, I will be honest.
It's a hard game.
No, I mean...
Well, I haven't bought it yet.
It's so good, you should.
We need to play it together at some point. I've had it... When did I get it? I got it... Yeah, 67.5 hours. I don't remember when I last got it.
It's one
But,
of those
like-
things though with Baldur's Gate though, where it kind of created this world, but also with the characters to the point that even outside, it's now people who haven't even played the game. It has that thing where people can still connect to the characters.
Yeah, very much
Yeah.
so.
I got into
I-
BG3 is because, you know, me and my friends talk nerdy a lot, and they were talking about like, oh yeah, Baldur's Gate 3 has these like really good characters. And it was specifically one of my friends was talking about like, oh, all my friends say that I look exactly like this character. And I was like, let me Google this character. Oh my god, you do.
I love that.
Yeah.
And then that kind of led me down the rabbit hole of, oh wow, these characters are really cool. I want this game. I want to play this game.
Absolutely. I will say one thing with Baldur's Gate 3 that's different to a lot of things in terms of world building is that you do, however, have the DM. You have a narrator.
Yeah.
And with that, you can do a lot of worlding because you'll go up to something and it's expected to forget a bit of emphasis. It's like, this is you recognize this thing. This is a blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
a mind flayer something. I don't know.
Yeah.
And so it can kind of pepper that in small amounts. But yeah, like even regardless of world building and stuff, even regardless of things, there's more to that than immersion. And this is something where I think like Baldur's Gate 3 can actually fall a little bit flat, and something you can take more advantage of in TTRPGs is that in your world you want to keep things moving. But yeah, like for example, just for an example in a game, say you have a merchant in a generic fantasy town, they're a blacksmith, yada yada yada, etc., etc. That is an NPC that serves a purpose. Their purpose is to provide gear for a player and, depending on things, potentially buy things from the player.
Or a turtle, apparently, in a bag when you were in prize campaign.
Roll animal handling to cram this turtle into the bag.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they have a purpose in the world. They are a merchant. However, they are also a character. Now, if you're doing something like, I don't know, just any like generic RPG, the merchant is going to be there. The merchant might always be open. The merchant will always buy the things. The merchant may have a rotating inventory, but they'll always tend to carry the same sort of thing. If you wait 100 days, the merchant will still be there. Like, and it's kind of expected to be there because they're there for a purpose. And I think that can like sometimes hurt immersion that they don't have any life beyond this. I think that's something you can really help with when doing TTRPGs and stuff like that, is like, hey, the merchant's gone out of town for a little bit, or hey, the merchant's niece has taken over the family business, or less like minor things like that, because you've got to provide the services you want your players to take advantage of for the game side of things, but you want the world to be breathing, living, moving for the immersion side of things. So it's like a real balancing act with that.
Yeah, I get that. I think that's one thing I'm trying to get. Why it's taken me a bit longer than I would have expected for creating the campaign that I'm creating at the moment, because I have the idea of the campaign is a story I've had for like years, and it's something I wanted to do. It was going to be a Minecraft roleplay originally. Well, no, it was going to be a Habbo Hotel roleplay, then a Minecraft roleplay. Then I made it into like a little comic strip, and now it's going into a idea of because for me I could evolve it more in like a D&D campaign.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to get that substance of the characters, so I'm creating like little backstories for all of the characters that people encounter, how they can relate to the story, how they could help people. And I know that it wouldn't go. I know that sometimes it doesn't go to plan 90% of the time because it's relying on like the idea of dice rolls and things like that and how the players interact and stuff. But I feel like if I have that connection to these characters that I've created, then I can understand them a bit more.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like
Honestly, populating towns and other like residential areas is such a time-consuming process.
Oh my god, it does.
Yeah.
Like, it's the thing where you need to understand a character, like, in order to act as them because it's not like a play. Like, you may have, like, this person is motivated to do X, but then, like, Y gets in the way because the players did something.
Mhm.
If you don't understand them, if they're a motive and not a character,
Yeah.
or an action, not a
Yeah.
character, then you're going to have a tougher time adapting to that. But also, Baldur's Gate 3 was in development for like 10 years or something stupid like that. It
God, was it that
took,
long?
like, I think it went in and out a little bit of development hell. Give me a second. Let me fact check that so I'm not talking complete bullshit. Like, when did it stop being developed?
I remember somebody talking about it a couple of years ago at like a convention.
Small team in late 2016, so 8 years ago.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in development for 8 years, and it has thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of all that stuff. And when we're setting up our own home games, we do not have thousands and thousands of hours and like the budget and stuff.
That's true.
And especially for like a city, like you can't populate a city. Like again, I'm falling back to Skyrim a lot because it's an example everyone knows. The cities in that are like 30 people or so. Like, they're barely a village, but they all feel like towns and cities.
It's just
Like,
yeah, it's adding that substance to it. It's like
yeah, like,
in the it's kind of inspired by like Skyrim sort of things. There's a Minecraft server called Minecraft that I really like,
okay.
and they have
We love Minecraft.
they have so many NPCs and missions and stories that go along with it, and they're constantly like adding more to it to make it feel
Yeah.
bigger. And there is even these like characters that only have like 1 or 2 lines, but you can understand a lot from them.
Hmm.
And that's in Minecraft, let alone, you know.
Oh, Minecraft is insane.
I have a
Just-
thing to bring up as well. How do you guys feel what brings the difference between fantasy in gaming and like tabletop games, there we go, and that sort of thing, versus like fantasy and like Ren fairs and conventions and things like that?
Ooh, yeah.
Ooh. Okay, that is a
Honestly,
very-
they have very similar vibes, don't
Yeah.
like it's similar vibes by design. Like all of it is
they?
indulging
Theater
in
of the mind as well.
fantasy. And even when you're doing physical things, there is a lot of theater of the mind, at least to my understanding. I have never done any live action roleplay. I would love to do some one day.
Oh my god. Right, group Ren fair, let's go.
Yeah, I was about
Oh
to
my
say
God.
group.
Well,
Ren
actually,
fair?
this weekend is Empire Weekend, which is
Oh
the
my God, I've
biggest
heard of that.
LARP in the UK.
Mhm.
I was supposed to be going, but I can't drive yet, so I'm not. I am going to
No.
E2, however, which is in June, and I am really fucking excited. One of my close friends is there right now, and I am just so excited to go. I have my character sorted.
Oh
You know, I've got a group that I'm going with, and honestly, like, I don't know much about it because I've never been before. Like, it's very much a learn while you're there kind of thing.
Mhm.
But like, Empire is literally the biggest LARP in the UK. Like, no doubt about it, is fucking massive. And so, like, there's so many people who seem to know so much more about it than I do, and it's kind of scary in that way.
Oh yeah, there's like a big barrier to entry. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, again, like for like a big thing with ETRPGs and any kind of thing has been easy accessibility. Like Dungeons and Dragons
Yeah.
5th edition, there are many things which contributed to its popularity.
Yeah.
But you can't deny that one of those things was a relatively easy barrier to entry.
Yeah.
I think that became worse and worse as honestly time went on with increasing number of rules and complications, but it is still the driving design philosophy of the system to be simple to understand.
Yeah. And like, full credit to Profound Decisions, the people who run Empire, is they have an entire wiki page just for everything you could possibly want to know. And like, I really appreciate that, because that is like if you're going into it completely blind, like you're gonna fuck up, you're gonna like make mistakes.
Yeah.
One thing I will
you might
say
even
about
get in
that-
trouble.
One thing I will say about that is there is a lot. I've been to quite a few, and I'm still quite amateur with the LARPing thing, and
Yeah.
especially at uni, I was part of the LARP society and stuff.
You had a LARP society.
We
Oh my
did,
God.
yeah.
Jealous.
Jealous. We don't have one.
It was one of those things where I was terrified I was going to mess up. I was terrified because
Yeah.
obviously I'm scared I'm going to get sensory overload. Things are going to think I'm
Yeah.
gonna... But there are some people. Don't get me wrong. It's like at all places. There's some people that take it ridiculously seriously. It will be slightly.
Oh God,
miffed.
yeah.
But 90% of the people there understand, and they understand that if it's your first time, for example, or you're new to it, they understand and they kind of guide you. And for example, the first time I went to one, I went with the LARP Society, and I lost them all. I was very confused, and there was this group of people, and they just completely broke their character and just went, "Are you okay? Do you need some help?" And I was like, "I'm confused." And then they just kind of like helped me and stuff, and then I just automatically went back into my character and things because it was fun.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people that are very genuine, and I will be honest, 90% of people that I've met at Renfairs are autistic in some way.
Oh yeah.
Wow, what a surprise!
Surprise.
What
Oh
a
my
fucking
God.
surprise.
But there's so many variety of people that have different like backgrounds with it and how they built their characters, and it's just it's a lot of fun. You will be honest, you will spend a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got to know.
That's the same with any gathering, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've been saving up for Empire since November. So
It's one of those things. I was just like, oh,
Jeez.
I'm still like only about halfway.
Now I really want to go to Empire. Like, it may have been raised as a joke, but like, we should
This-
plan something after this.
there's one that I want
Yeah.
to go to in the summer, and it's over 4 days. It's not actually as expensive, but it's in a castle in Scotland.
Yes, I think I know which one you mean.
Yeah, and you kind of
I can't remember what it's called.
you create your character, you submit your character, and they can help you along the way. If you like, for example, you don't have to submit the character, but it's recommended because then they can help you get within the world and the fantasy and stuff like that. But it's like a bunch of people, because I had somebody that went, and you kind of eat meals together. You go to like little training sessions and things, and like the
that's
first
so cool.
2 of the 4 days are not in roleplay. They are learning how to get into that world and the fantasy. Like you can, they're like split into 2. So there's like one half of the people who are new to it and want to learn about all of it will go, and then the people that are already into it and thing will go into a different thing, and then kind of everyone comes together, and it's really fun.
Oh, that's cool.
Obviously from what I've saw, but you kind of sleep in this castle and stuff, and you get to and you kind of get like you get to keep like a cape at the end of it and stuff. It's cool.
It has a cape. Sign me the
You
fuck
get
up.
a cape.
But no, it's like I've always said, like one of my favorite things when I'm acting as a dungeon master is to have new players at my table,
Oh,
because
absolutely.
they're not so stuck into how things work and the typical ideas of stuff, that they come up with really creative ideas that you don't really get when you're playing with experienced players.
Exactly. Like, experienced players have played it a lot, and I feel like there's a point, and this is something in Baldur's Gate 3 I've noticed as well. In just watching other people play it, there's a point where you go from playing it as a fantasy and playing it as a game. Like, a lot of actions in D&D, by their nature of being rarer, will have either tougher chance of succeeding or less advantageous effects than something written in the rules, because something written in the rules is definite. Like convincing someone to drop their sword, shall we say. You can try and roleplay that. You say what you want, you have to come up with what to say to that. The DM will set something in their head, they'll come up with their own justification on how to run that social encounter. And then even with all of that, a dice will be rolled. Like, and your own character stats will come into it, and it's a whole mess of things. Compare that to the first level spell, Command Drop.
Yeah.
There are rules for that. Everything is written down. You know pretty much exactly what the numbers will have to be. There's still dice involved, because there's still a chance of failure. But a lot more is spelled out explicitly for you. And I feel like with experienced players, as you become more and as you gain a greater understanding of the system, you kind of lean on the system more and more to kind of like accomplish the things you want to do. And so that's good because you accomplish more. It's bad because you kind of limit yourself to what you know is probably going to work.
Yeah, and it kind of revolves then around just getting the raw numbers, which is something that I always find really frustrating. Like, especially if I'm playing a game on stream, is when people just reduce things down to the numbers. It's like, I don't always want to have the most efficiently thought out character. Sometimes I want to have a character that has character to them.
I'm playing this game for fun, not for maths.
It's like, that's why I like my character that June and Autumn, you'll know. I really like my character Nicole that I have. And that's because I put part of me into it as well as the fantasy, because obviously with D&D characters there is an aspect that you will put part of you into it because it's just how it works. You're playing the character, but I like my character because they are very unpredictable. There's a lot of different things that come from it, and they kind of, because I made it's my first proper campaign as well, and I think that's why I have a bigger connection to them as well. But it's the kind of thing that works where I don't know what's going to happen, and June is very good with this in DM style, where June will can twist up things and things change. And I love it because it's the element of surprise. In fantasy, I love the element of surprise. For example, as well with Bry's, Bry did this mini campaign. And it was so, it wasn't serious. It was just very funny. And I loved it. It was great. It was one of those things. It's like sometimes you just want to do that. Sometimes serious campaigns are really cool. But also sometimes having that little bit of silly goofiness in it is also kind of makes
and that's what I wanted from this one shot that I did, was just to have fun, and it was my first time DMing as well, so I wanted to kind of learn alongside having a laugh.
Yeah.
And I like how you really achieved that.
Yeah. No, I was saying I like how you accidentally came up with the origins of the supus that I used in a one-shot campaign, for the charity event we did ages ago.
Oh, that charity event. You guys were all part of that charity event, weren't you?
Yeah.
I was, but then I got a migraine and had to leave.
That was so silly.
I was so sleep deprived working on that because all my ideas, everything that I was building crashed, so I had to basically restart everything from 2 hours before, and all I had in my mind then was soup ooze and baby mimics.
Wait, I've just realised 2 of my characters in D&D things have been called Panibus and Link's Ono after aftershave. And body spray. I don't know why I do that.
Of course.
But then there's my characters, there's Zamira, the Dragon Ball character that freaking although most of the campaign she has been passed out.
Been asleep.
Yeah.
Just Sleepy Dragon.
Sleepy Dragon, it's fine.
I would like to pick up on something though, that we just mentioned. But a little while ago when it came. Oh, sorry, I'm stumbling over my words.
That's completely fine. Take your time. It's all good.
Yeah, just going back to never mind. I'd pass. It'll come back to me.
It's one of those things where things just come back to you and you're like, wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't be surprised when I go, oh my god, I got it 5 minutes from now.
Yeah.
But we just started a discussion beforehand, which was about disabilities in gaming.
Yeah.
I think that might be a good thing to kind of.
Yeah, and honestly, I think Nicole is the perfect character to kind of segue into that.
Yeah, because Nicole uses crutches, but also has a robotic arm because they were born without an arm. So that's how they get their arcane magic, through this magical arm.
Yeah. So it's June, do you want to actually explain the setting a little bit?
Okay,
since it is.
This is a homebrew game. Sorry, this is a homebrew setting. And by that I mean it was made by someone else, but I modified it, so now it's homebrew, called Dragon Mech. And the whole vibe of it is post-apocalyptic steampunk. Like, you have a regular fantasy world, it's hit by a catastrophe, in this case the moon falling to Earth, bringing monsters and asteroid strikes and etc. And people are now rebuilding thanks to steam technology, which may or may not be from a long distance past. The dwarves and elves are arguing again.
As they do.
Yeah.
As they do. And yeah, part of this world, there are steam prosthetics and like steam like mechanical augments, like cyborg stuff. Only we call it Steamborg, because fantasy.
Steamborg. Yeah.
But yeah, Autumn, do you want to take over?
So yeah, like having it be this kind of mix of like real-ish like steampunk kind of mechanics and having the kind of fantasy world magic allows us to actually have a lot of fun with like how different characters work and things. So it's like the reason that my character Dana and Bex's character Nicole actually met is because my character is a mechanic, and they're the one that built the arm. And we kind of came up with the idea that like to find a power source that was kind of small enough and safe enough to work for basically, because Nicole was a child when this arm was built, that they found like this kind of magic crystal or something, and that's where they get their arcane powers from. But like there's so much fun that you can have with fantasy when you look into kind of combining it with different disabilities.
And
because
like, I think that's why urban fantasy, especially as a thing, gains most of its popularity and stuff. Like, it is about things like vampires that sniff out blood disease, werewolf therapy dogs, like stuff like that. It's why Terry Pratchett is so engaging. It's making it fit, not like using magic to essentially erase disabilities and neurodivergences.
Yeah.
Kind of using it as part of it, which I feel like is it goes back to the idea of like representation and kind of relating to the characters in a human sense, like what Bryce said.
Yeah. Also, like with this is something I have a personal pet peeve with. When it comes to people specifically saying, "Oh, in this setting there's magic. Why don't they magic the thing?" And this becomes more of a problem because in fantasy, when you're writing a thing or coming up with a setting, there's generally two types of magic. There's magic systems. There's hard magic systems and soft magic systems. And it's very much a scale between the two. Soft magic is where the magic kind of has no rules.
Which is your Lord of the Rings kind of style.
Yeah, or if there are rules, they're not explained. And so you kind of just have to accept what is there. It doesn't have to make sense. It just is. This is a setting where people often come up with complaints of why don't they just magic the problem away? Like, why didn't Gandalf teleport the ring or something like that? And you can't, and unless it's physically stated, it's impossible. Like, sorry, I'm stumbling in modes again. Unless you physically state it's impossible, you will always have people stating, well, why didn't they just do X? Why didn't they just use magic to solve it? Then you have, on the other system, hard magic systems, which is more like D&D, where you have, like, spell slots and spell levels, and these are canonical things in-game, like, that wizards use to, like, track their magical capabilities. But then you kind of run the risk of gamifying everything too much. That's more of an emergent thing. But pretty much where I was getting with this is, first of all, is there magic in the setting to, like, heal, shall we say, the physical disability? And furthermore, from that, with disabilities, both physical and mental, I feel like it can step into a lot of yikes territory to magically fix people. Like...
It's like the whole thing with like in real life, my autism is part of my personality. I will be honest. It makes your personality. It's part of it.
Yeah.
At the end of
Yeah.
the day, it makes me cool and funny. I'm gonna
Yep, same.
Oh my god, and sometimes
Real.
sexy, but but
God,
yeah.
same.
It's
Yeah,
one
like,
of
My
those things.
autism makes me
Exactly.
so blunt. So like when it comes to like, obviously like I am not asexual, whereas like other people here are.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hey, up.
I'm asexual.
when it comes-
Asexual beast.
Yeah. So I am allosexual, and it's so funny because my autism, when it comes to situations in which I will like, I don't know, suggest having sex to somebody, I will be so fucking blunt with them. It's like once I like went to somebody I know who I hook up with sometimes and just went to them and went, "Do you want to be topped tonight?" And they just fucking burst out laughing and went, "Sure, fuck it."
That's one thing that made me laugh in the like Fallout TV show. Like the main character, she just goes, "Do you want to have sex with me right here?" And it's just like, what?
Literally.
It's like, Jesus Christ.
Hey,
It's like major like ADHD vibes. We love
Yeah.
it.
But
Yeah, like,
it makes you like sometimes to people, and I suppose it goes the same in fantasy. It can make you who you are at the same time.
Mm.
Yeah.
like it is part of me. I like when it comes to me and my various neurodivergences and stuff. Like it is me. It's like referring to my brain. Like it's not my autism makes me like be tougher at understanding social cues. I, as a person, like struggle with social cues. That's just part of me. Like various aspects of who I am are tied to this because it is who I am. And like
Yeah.
the idea of, oh, we will fix this about you is a bit like, okay.
It's like if somebody
It's a
went to
bit
me, I'm
like-
going to cure your autism and ADHD, I'd be like, I'd probably, like, if it just happened like that, I'd probably be to the point I'd be like, well, what the fuck do I do now? Who am I? What?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or, like I've just unmasked and have figured out who I am without masking. You're telling me I got to do that again? No, thank you.
Like, I mean, in all essentiality, like we develop and change, and so I don't like to use this term, but like the person, I'd be a different person. I would not be late June 27 anymore. I may use that name, but I wouldn't be that person, you know?
Yeah.
And like, it raises up a whole thing of like fixing neurodivergence, fixing ills, and like, are we doing, and like in the fantasy universe, do you want to add this thing to your universe because, to like say, in this universe, healing magic is so widely available and so powerful that people don't have to suffer with this? Or is it I don't want to include these people in my setting?
Mm.
Like in that kind of vibe.
And I feel like if for different people, like it's completely valid if people don't want that, you know, or if it's healing, like, because it's different. Because we could be sitting here saying that for me personally, I don't think I would. But if a player was to come into a session that I was DMing and say, "Well, could this work?" and I'd be like, "Well, why would you want that?" and they'd explained, I'd most possibly be like, "Well, yeah, for your character, if you want that to be a thing." Because it can be different for different people. So some people might not
Highly
want
down
it.
to personal preference, I think.
Yeah.
Because it's like there are some aspects of my disability, like, yes, they are a part of me, but given the chance, I would happily get rid of them.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And it's just kind of down to personal choice, I think. Because, you know, my autism and my ADHD, I don't always like them, but they are a part of me, regardless.
It's that kind
And so
of balance,
I don't think I
isn't
would
it?
get rid of them. However, like things like my chronic pain and chronic fatigue, I would get rid of those in a fucking
Oh, for
heartbeat.
sure.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like the whole thing of like with the autism and ADHD, there were the positives and negatives. I would love to get rid of the negative sides of it, but there are things that help with the positives of it.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's
Yeah.
that whole thing. And I think
Like
I personally like to bring those sort of things into my character because to me it kind of makes me feel like I can relate to the character more, but bring in an aspect of kind of uniqueness to them at the same time
Yeah.
yeah.
that I can
But
relate
actually,
to.
I think as well is that it gives a bigger opportunity for world building.
Absolutely. Like
Because,
Yeah.
like,
does
like to kind of keep with the theme that we've been talking about, like to to start off with prosthetic limbs. Like, different races are going to have different ways of how they handle that. Different like cultures and things are going to deal with it differently. You know, you might have a necromancer that just reattaches their old hand. You might have, you know, an elf who has like magically enchanted wood that grows with them, kind of thing.
It's kind of cool how people can think about the differences in fantasy, because there is no, at the end of the day, there is no set way for it.
Yeah.
And anyway, June, you were saying?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Pretty much. I was just saying, like, yeah. Again, I think incorporating these things into fantasy, because yeah, it depends, like, on what level you want and what level of escapism you want. And if you want to say like your like neurodivergence or physical disability is like impacting you in a way you really don't like, it can be really nice to play in a world where you're not say limited. Like, for example, I have anxiety. Playing it as an awesome badass character who fears nothing can be really cathartic.
Yeah.
That being said, having characters with anxiety who drink like who like has like a little talisman of bravery or something,
Yeah,
like can also be fun world building and similar. I feel like some of the thing of like no disabilities in fantasy though, especially when it comes to worlds which don't have healing magic, which like say you're wheelchair bound in a such world. Because there was this big thing I remember a while back with wheelchairs and things like D&D and similar, and like the thing it kind of spoke about to me, at least, it was less so, oh, having fantasy wheelchairs is unrealistic for adventurers. It all rang to me about as like, I don't think was people saying that they didn't think the people with wheelchairs could do the adventuring things, that they weren't capable enough. And I just saw that and went, no, that's bullshit.
yeah.
I call bullshit.
Yeah.
Have you seen all-terrain wheelchairs? I want one.
Real.
I have indeed. In our Cyberpunk Red session, we've got a spider wheelchair. It has a grappling hook. It can run up walls. It's awesome.
See,
yeah.
I think that's why I like Nicole so much, because I kind of got the idea that I use obviously crutches and walking aids and stuff, but it doesn't stop them in the way that it kind of does sometimes with me in real life. And that's why I like that sort of thing with that character, because I can go and be a badass person even though I've got the character's got that disability, you know. And I like the idea of that. But then I really like Zamira, and Zamira is this, like, to me, is a badass dragon that fears nothing, you know. And that's also very
needs
nice.
Nap time.
Also needs nap time. We do love that. Listen, I got knocked out off a bridge. It's fine. But it's kind of,
fear nothing, but the Underdark does not fear them.
It's finding that balance of like the fantasy side of it, but also, as you said, June, finding the thing where you can go, oh, but I can make this what I want.
Yeah, the human element.
Yeah. And you can fight and still be like, yeah, look at me.
But like, I've also seen the thing of with, like, especially with D&D, it's like, oh well, they have potions of healing, so therefore it can heal anything, and it's like just that isn't kind of how the potions kind of work though, because like, one, not everyone's going to have access to them. Like, if you actually look in like the handbooks, like potions of healing, even the weak ones, are very expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, like,
and
disregarding D&D's frankly broken economy, because it's not built to be a balanced economy. That's not the kind of game it is. Like,
it's like this is gonna sound weird, but I feel like adventurers use health potions wrong for how they're intended to be used, but in a way that works for them.
I always imagined with health potions, and this like could be completely like wrong or off thing, but I don't think there is with fantasy. There's no really wrong answer, is there? But I have the whole other thing. I always imagined with health potions that they kind of just work sort of like the idea of meds in real life. like you have painkillers, like they'll help with the pain and things like that. And then there's like the idea that yes, there can be stronger ones with the magic and the magic side of things, where there could be at some point one that could regrow limbs, but it's kind of like that's the more expensive side of it when you go to it. And it's kind of, I just imagine they act like that sort of thing, like they will kind of assist and stop like bleeding, like work like tourniquets and things like that, just in a similar way. Magic potions.
Like I've always seen it as like they speed up your natural healing, and that's why an adventurer would chug an entire potion in one go because they need that healing quickly. But like, if you think about it, like the fact that your average like small town store has like multiple health potions despite their price, like even if there's not a lot of adventurers in the area, suggests that like there is a way that people are buying them that isn't like prohibitively expensive. And like I can see it being like when you get like a big bottle of like cough medicine or something, and it just kind of sits in the cupboard until you need it, and it's like chugging a whole potion in one go is abnormal, but it works for adventurers and they have the money to be able to do that. But like your average farmer, it might be the case that like they'll water it down to heal up some scratches if they've been like bitten by something, or it will be mixed into a salve or something, so it gets used slowly, so it's not like ridiculously expensive, but it makes sense for it to still exist in shops. But like if you look at it as being something where it just like speeds up your natural healing to the point where like you don't need to worry about infections and stuff, because that window of infection is close, like is very small, and things not like depending on how much knowledge is in the world about like how like diseases work and stuff, but like in general don't let wounds get dirty. That's a thing humans worked out pretty quickly. It's one of those things where like having it be something that just increases your natural healing makes sense, because it's not going to stop something that is like a degenerative disease. It's like it's not going to cure something like arthritis, because that's something that's wearing down in your body that your body isn't making things to recover.
Yeah.
Like it can't make that better. It might be able to stop it and slow it, but it's not going to fix it, kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Off-topic question.
Okay.
When you think of healing potions, what color do you think of?
Red.
Everyone thinks of red. Yeah. But what flavor do you think it would be?
Oh, that's a very good question. I always imagined them as kind of sweet. I always imagined them as some kind of like overly sweet, like thing.
I think they taste kind of aniseedy, like cough syrup.
Aniseed's so nice.
Oh, I hate it. I can't stand it.
I always imagine,
it's strawberry cowpole.
Oh my god, yes, please.
I don't know if you guys ever had the banana flavored antibiotic as a kid.
Oh no. Oh.
I always imagine
literally,
that.
they had to give me the adult antibiotics at the age of 5 years old because I could not keep that shit down.
I don't know why I imagine that. And it's just like, it's where it's really nasty, but it's sweet. So it masks it, but at the same time, you're like, ah!
Do you know what it is? It's the opposite of Mary Poppins medicine. It's like Mary Poppins medicine tastes great for whoever takes it. Health potions are the opposite, and it tastes shit for whoever takes it.
That's how they get it cheap.
Full of sugar,
they make it taste shit.
Come up.
Now that you've reminded me of that, I'm not gonna get the taste out of my brain.
Oh no, I won't.
Rip.
Or like a very artificial strawberry.
I feel like as well, like it might have like a very kind of like strong alcoholic flavor, like kind of like
it's
like
just
vodka
pure
or something.
It's just pure vodka.
Yeah.
It's like
But
down
you know what I mean?
That's
Where
my
it's
healing potion.
something that
Tequila.
burns as you drink it. Like you feel it working, kind of thing.
Have you ever had Skittles vodka where it's really sweet but also burns? It's so good.
That sounds incredible.
I will make you some and bring you some, bro.
Oh my god,
so
please.
Good. It's really sweet, but then it burns your throat afterwards. It's really good if you're sick.
God.
Also really good if you got cheap vodka, and that's the only thing you can afford to drink.
Oh no, Sainsbury's cheap vodka tastes like bleach. Don't. No.
Paint thinner.
Paint thinner.
No thanks. But yeah, there's actually 2 points that have actually come to mind about health points. One is like the very standard one, which I think it goes back to like the gamification Asian thing of like hit points being conceived as how much damage you can take, and like the whole language around it with like hits and stuff like that is like, it very much comes with a Minecraft Steve thing of you've taken 20 hours to your back and you're fine, you're absolutely fine, but that at 21st one that'll get you. Like and thinking very much as hit points as meat points, and kind of like that view of healing potions. Personally, as a DM, I like to flavor hit points as more of a reservoir of exhaustion before the final thing gets you down. Like the final thing goes in and kicks your ass.
I kind of agree with you on that. I kind of think of hit points as like a whole like aspect with my characters, that it's to the point where there's only so much you can take before you just get to the point where you can't do any more.
Yeah, where they can strike the blow that'll fuck you up. It's a mixture of, your raw constitution, like how many like small nicks and cuts you can take. Perhaps you have taken an arrow if you're getting low on hit points. Like,
there's only so much you can grit your teeth until you need to scream.
Yeah. Like it's exhaustion. It's a moment of weakness. It's the breath you're taking. It's all the narrow escapes until your end moment. But even if we did treat hit points like 8 points, like all of them, and you have healing potions, one thing that I don't think people have in settings is like D&D is a system that's designed to run a certain way. I think it's fair to say. It's vaguely designed for you to get certain levels of loot at certain levels that your character is at. It's designed for shops to have somewhat of the same inventory and be kind of standardized regardless of where you are. And I think that can honestly be a thing, like healing potions. Everyone thinks healing potions. Everyone thinks of healing potions just being available at the store because that's how it is typically to us as players. Yeah. But no one really thinks, okay, where does the healing potion come from? Who makes the healing potion? What do they make it out of? Like, is there a grand factory that ships it out like Tesco's? Like,
oh yes, the Tesco's in the fantasy world, big Tesco specifically, you know.
Yeah,
or like it might be that like small village shops will have a few in stock, but like maybe during the harvest season they'll have more brought into stock because people are more likely to get injured as they're, scything their crops and things, and people will have more money to spend on them because they're selling those crops. So like economically it makes sense that, it's like, oh, it's harvest season, shops might have double the amount of health potions they usually stock, kind of thing.
Yeah, like this is getting back to like the the whole TTRPGs as a game versus like the role playing versus the game, like with all these factors and tracking while still having the things available to your players to like let them have a fun time, like, yeah, because if you get into too much of the like realism and logistics and stuff, like it can all fall apart. But like if you choose to explore it just a little bit, like say, like, yeah, just going off of Wormsh's comment down there, say there's like a dwarven mushroom farm where healing potions are created. Like, heroes might get bored of the same, oh, the village is under attack, let's go save the village. If it's like, I'm sorry, we're out of healing potions, the shipments keep getting attacked by like wild bandits. They're suddenly like, I can't have the thing I want. Oh. Let's go take it down. Like, it can really help develop your world instead. Like, even if you have it be unrealistic, like it's they dwarves fly on eagles and there's wyverns attacking them or something like that.
I like the idea because I always used to be scared and that's why I haven't DM'd before. Like I've always wanted to, but because my brain sometimes I like why I do understand like 5th edition D&D, some things don't fit into the fantasy aspect of what I was trying to create. And then I spoke with Autumn and Autumn was like, we'll just change it a little bit. And that's the idea of like homebrewing and things, and making the idea that if something doesn't go exactly to the book, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
And I like
That's
it.
always a thing. When you're making these worlds, and when you're even making a session, and when you're running a pre-made session out of a pre-made book using pre-made characters, you're running your own world.
Yeah.
You're running your own version of the world. Every word that escapes your lips, every indentation, every small description, every asset placed where, and whatever thing you're doing, be it theater of the mind descriptions, be it a tabletop up laid out in front of you, or be it an app like Roll20, it's going to be your world. And there is no way that any system is ever going to be perfect for your world. Homebrew has to exist.
Yeah.
By its very nature.
For example, there's a whole homebrew thing that I want to do with people, which is called One Hunk Before Midnight. It's where you play as geese.
Oh my god, I love it.
Perfect.
Can I just say, I don't know how controversial this is going to be, but I cannot fucking stand D&D Puritans. Who, like, the kind of, like, DMs, or even players sometimes, who are just like, you can't do that because it's not in the written rules. Actually, you don't have, like, this and this and this, so you can't do that. And it just pisses me off, because it's like, dude, we're playing for fun. Shut up.
D&D is, at least, I understand if that's something, if you enjoy it because of the rules, because they give shape to something, because you like a world which follows a logic that can be easily tracked. I like that. It's why I like strategy games. I know that X, 2 + 2 = 4. I can find enjoyment in understanding things like enemy behavior. But when you take that to a point where you are limiting your other players in what is essentially a collaborative experience,
limiting imagination as well.
Yeah,
it's just not good. It's destructive of the people around you, and it feels like you're putting down others for the sole benefit of hey, I notice and you don't.
Yeah.
And this is actually going back to something I finally remembered the point earlier.
Yay!
Yeah.
And pretty much it was about fantasy and surprise.
Yes, fantasy and surprise.
Because we're in fantasy worlds where, again, things, and why I think surprise and investigation mysteries are so hard to write for fantasy. Because if you're having a fantasy mystery, there will be a fantasy element. And the rules of fantasy, you can't know them all. You can't completely understand a world from head to bottom. Because, again, we each got our own headcanons and cultural understandings of things. So say you had a very simple thing where, someone was murdered by a ghost, and you could have to reveal that, oh my god, it was a ghost all along. But say you didn't know about ghosts. Just say, for whatever reason, you didn't know about ghosts. You wouldn't know, oh, they phase through wall, oh, there's ectoplasm lining it. It's all these things would go over your head. And so it's not really a effective surprise to learn it's a ghost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're what's a ghost? And in D&D equivalent, there's much more complicated creatures than ghosts. There might be things like that players might recognize as oh my god, odd, an air elemental. And the other person might be what's an air elemental?
Yeah.
You need to have the surprise be able to be recognizable and be understood for it to be effective.
In a lot of ways, writing a mystery, especially for tabletop RPGs, it involves a lot of metagaming from the players. You have to know that your players are going to get it, even if their characters in world might not.
No, actually, speaking about immersion, I've got something that always breaks me out of it. It is my most hated thing whenever it comes to the topic of metagaming. Okay, so pretty much this is going back a long time, but you want to know what my first ever soiree into tabletop RPGs was?
What was it?
What?
It was a home game run by my sibling that was Naruto. We were playing in a custom tabletop RPG system, which I'm pretty sure he made up the rules as we went along, where we were playing through the story of Naruto as our own characters. And so naturally, we loved the anime when we were younger. We watched all the stuff, and we were playing along the main story. Obviously, it would break and become incredibly tangled and unique as time went on, but there was one specific moment where it's because Naruto is a lot of surprise, and then they take the time to explain, oh, here's how I beat you. Here's the diagrams and stuff about how our system of chakra works. And naturally, we all knew how the stuff worked. We all knew the big bad guy's weaknesses because we'd watched the show. And there was this one moment where it's like this fellow player of mine was trying not to metagame. And the way they justified it to themselves was, oh, I guess I'll try this thing. Oh, that didn't work. Who knew? Oh, I'll try this other thing I know won't be effective. Man, am I stumped. What if I try this thing? Oh, that one? That's so wild. I didn't expect that.
Yeah.
And just the whole thing just completely wrenched me out of it. There's this big, I think... what's the word I'm looking for? Not good perception of metagaming that people are so desperate to avoid that they end up trying to come up with justification or force characters to act in ways against their nature to be avoided of accusing of metagaming. Like, you can't unknow something. I think it's much better in world building to, like, let people know about things. I've never met a crocodile. I know that you want to hold a crocodile's mouth shut to stop it from biting you.
Yeah.
I think in a world with, say, vampires, people would know about vampires and, like, holy water and shit.
Yeah.
Like, take, for example, my Curse of Innistrad campaign, which I'm currently working on for its revival. Like, in that world, fuck yeah, do people know about vampires? They're being eaten by vampires.
They're everywhere.
Yeah. Vampires like kicking your ass. Stories exist for a reason. Like, and in a world full of mythical monsters, you're telling me they don't teach little Timmy about the fucking using a mirror against a Medusa?
Yeah.
Like, that is an effective story that teaches a moral lesson to the kids. If we can teach, like, if we in our storytelling teach kids to look both ways before crossing the street, and we can teach that, you can absolutely teach little Timmy about silver versus werewolves or some shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, like, you can bring in a fun element of, like, maybe the reason why, like, a town gets overrun with monsters is because the monsters aren't native to the region.
Yeah, absolutely.
So people don't know how to deal with them. Because, like, even your basic farm town is going to know how to deal with, you know, the usual monsters in the area. Like, it may not be effective for a whole lot of them, but, you know, they'll know roughly how to deal with, like, a local goblin clan or something.
It's like the sense of, like, as well, you got to remember, it's like the whole idea that people forget when the something bad happens sometimes because you go into pure fight or flight mode. Like, it's the whole thing of, like, or if people are taught about something and it doesn't happen for thousands of years, and then all of a sudden it happens, people go, oh, what the fuck?
Yeah, of course. Like, I feel like there's a limit to this whole thing of, like, metagaming and stuff, and, like, specifically looking up stuff. Like, I remember I had a player who, like, I'd brought in this three-headed scarecrow as a big boss fight.
Yeah.
Right, that shot ravens out of its arms. And I remember one certain moment where a person said, oh, don't worry, I looked up its stats, it should only have this much health left. And I was just like, come on.
Yeah.
You removed all tension from this situation. Now it's a maths problem.
Yeah.
And that's when you add on a couple more hit points.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was enjoying it. Which was really fun.
The DM's ultimate
Surprise, it's
power.
actually got a second health bar. Let's go.
It's the ultimate DM play. Nuh-uh.
What you mean, nuh-uh? Anyway.
Nuh-uh.
I love the idea that what, like, for example, what Warmish said, it doesn't have to be the written rules as long as it's consistent.
Yeah, I think that's a good compromise between, like, because you're going to run into situations which don't exist, but, like, if you feel like you're changing the rules every 5 seconds, then, like, because the rules are very much in a way that players interact with the world. Like, it is like, obviously there is room for interpretation and stuff and creative uses, but say with magic, you have spells, you have spell slots. Those are the magic you can perform. or that is what is considered reasonable for your character's abilities.
Yeah.
And so if that starts being inconsistent with what your character's abilities can and can accomplish, like, you don't really know, like, it becomes a case of, well, what can I do
Yeah.
without, like, breaking things? What is this person capable of?
It's like,
Oh, yeah.
there's one thing with the talking on the idea of what with D&D and just fantasy games in general. So it's like, for example, with like, it could be with Warhammer, with even with Pokemon, like the world of Pokemon. I am a person that will ask questions. I don't know everything. Nobody knows everything. I ask questions, and I hate people. Oh, thank you, bro. You're the almighty, you know. But I hate when people. I had a DM once, and also in like when I was Pokemon tournament, where they kind of, you ask questions and they go, you should know this, or why do you not, like, or kind of talk down to you when explaining it. For example, I have a thing where I go, can I do this? Because I don't know if I can do this.
Yeah.
I don't know if the person's world, the DM's world, will allow for me to do this. And if they say no, it can't, fair enough, I'll think about something else. But I hate when people just go, no. I'm not telling you.
Yeah. It's like, if you're gonna say no, at least give a reason why it wouldn't work, unless it's something completely stupid.
Yeah. I would like to say though, as well, like, in terms of consistency of rules, there is something to be said for changing the rules to make it more fun.
Yeah.
Like, if your players are not, like, if there is a rule that you have and it is limiting your players to the point where they are no longer having fun, change it.
Yeah.
Like, do something about it. Otherwise, people are just, like, your players are just going to end up resenting you. They're going to end up resenting the game. They're not going to have fun, and they're just not going to want to play it.
Yeah.
If you have, like, a thing where, I can't think of any examples, but, like, just anything that limits your players past a challenge and into the territory of, God, I'm not enjoying this. Like, this is too difficult. This is too hard. I just don't want to play anymore.
Yeah.
Fucking change it. Like, whether you want to do it out of character or in character, like, change it. Like, don't just let your players suffer because you've decided that this is your rule.
Exactly.
It's like one of like, kind of keeping in with the idea of D&D, like, the thing that comes to mind when you say that is the Tomb of Annihilation.
Yeah.
Because it is so much just, no, that doesn't work, you go back to the start. No, that doesn't work. No, that doesn't work. You entered this room, you're dead.
Ugh,
and it's like, how is that fun? Like,
no.
Like, because the thing is like, people from who played the earlier generations of D&D were like, oh, it's great, it's, you know, this big challenge. And it's like, it may have been in the older editions, but just translating it across doesn't work.
No.
Because basically you have to have characters you don't really care about because they're gonna die at least 8 times throughout the thing. Like, there's no room for experimenting because if something goes wrong, they get teleported back to the start or their alignment changes. And, like, you basically just have to slog through and eventually get it right. And, like, how is that fun?
No, that's just trial and error. At that point.
Also, I would just like to bring up something because alignment was mentioned.
I thought.
Yes.
Just as and we've all heard things about alignment, and it's fun as a rough guide, yada yada, etc., etc. I don't like alignment as a system. I've said this many times before. I think it is way too vague to basically mean a damn. I think it can be often used to flanderize characters, like especially looking at you, chaotic evil and lawful good. And I think it's just meaningless. Like, you can make a good argument for fucking Robin Hood being chaotic good or lawful evil. Chaotic good, he breaks the law, or to do good for the community. Lawful evil, he's evil because he's breaking the laws, but he has his own code of honor that he sticks to rigorously.
It's like my whole thing where I literally, my favorite thing when talking about alignment is just going, you know, might save your life, might fuck your wife. You don't know. But also with alignment, I like, for me, I like looking at alignment to start with, just to get a base of a character. Because I kind of get to the point, you don't know what's going to happen in that character's adventure. Something bad could happen, and then they turn like slightly angry or evil in inverted commas. Because you don't know what's going to happen to them. They could get fucking angry at something that's happened, you know, and rebel against it. And then that's technically changed alignment, but it hasn't in that sense.
Yeah. Exactly. I think it can become a case of, the thing I don't like, it becomes a case of, oh, well, I play chaotic evil, so I have to do this. It's just, that's what I have to do. Like, but the thing I was getting at is, that's a common thing. It's going back to the gamification versus RPG thing, which is a thing I know I'm going on about a lot, but
that's fine.
It's reducing and it's something I've noticed with more experienced D&D players. It's asking what you're playing rather than who you're playing. Like, because we're falling so into like the stereotypes things. Like, I'm playing a lawful good paladin, and that's what you kind of are seen as, rather than Uli Ravenbeard or whatever the hell. Like,
yeah. And
it kind of becoming a thing of, even with spells and stuff, like, do we live in a world where every person is defined into these tiny little boxes and everyone understands that? Like, I'm afraid I cannot help you, for I am only a level 5 cleric. I do not have access to this on my spell list.
I think that's where like the Session Zero live shows, anybody who's been to Insomnia will know what I'm on about.
Yeah,
they are so funny to the point where they mention, oh, I'm like big barbarian, grr, yay, but they kind of go with what, like, it goes completely different ways every time they do the show, because they kind of don't go with the idea that I'm chaotic evil, I'm chaotic good, and there's like a paladin that was listening to the audience. Now, you know that'll go nowhere, but I told them that they hide under a blanket. It's fine. That's on YouTube somewhere. You can find it.
Love it.
But, amazing.
But it's the whole idea that it's the whole thing that, yes, with the whole idea, if you're playing D&D, you've got to remember at the same time you are playing D&D, but you can also come into the idea that you're a character. You've created this character. The character is not just their attributes.
Yeah, the rules are how you interface with the world. The rules are not the world. This isn't Sword Art Online.
Yeah.
No, anyway.
But it's like, because like the thing with D&D is that you've got stuff like, you know, detect good and evil and all that as a spell, and it's like that kind of like, if someone has that spell, that basically removes any nuance you can have with your characters. Because it's like going back to the campaign we were talking about earlier, the Dragon Mech one, my character Dana, I'm pretty sure on her character sheet she is chaotic neutral. But currently in the situation that we're in, I play her more as like chaotic good or neutral good. Because just because she has her own code of ethics which are not aligned to what society expects, she doesn't want to get thrown out of where she is currently, so she's going to blend in. That doesn't make her a good character. Well, I mean, you know, good as in, you know, morally aligned good.
Yeah.
But it makes her it makes her a good character in the sense that, you know, she changes and reacts to what's going on around her. Like if like someone was to cast, you know, detect good and evil, like I don't actually know how that would work with a character like that, that, you know, their behavior doesn't always align with, you know, their own morality, because it's like that thing of like it kind of falls into the thing of intrusive thoughts. Like, you're not a bad person if you have intrusive thoughts.
Yeah.
But like in a world like D&D, it's like, does that make that less of a thing, kind of thing?
Yeah.
Because you can act out of accordance to the way that you're thinking.
What kind of dictates the world of fantasy to you? So, for example, fantasy for some people can be something as little as, for example, like Lethal Company as a game. That is a fantasy sort of experience. But then there's also the world of like D&D, which is a different type of fantasy. But what to you depicts fantasy to you?
Okay, that's a very good question.
I think the first thing to say to that is that like all fantasy is fiction, but not all fiction is fantasy.
Yeah.
I like that.
If that makes sense. Like, to me, fantasy is very much the more magic and fairy tale and usually medieval vibes, but that doesn't mean that that's all that fiction is as a genre.
Mhm.
Like, I wouldn't class, like, Star Trek as fantasy, even though in some ways it's got a lot of those elements because it focuses a lot more on the science fiction side of things.
Now, to me, I would class that as fantasy in my mindset, and that's because of like how I was grow up. Because to me, with my dad, that was a kind of thing where that was our fantasy escapism, and with me, anything that considers I can consider that I can escape from a little bit is a type of fantasy. Like, there's different types of fantasy, but for example, science fiction to me, that like space and all of this, and yes, it's got the thing, but like all these spaceships and the Starship Enterprise and things like that, and the aliens that they come across and all of this, to me, that is fantasy. And it's quite cool to see how you see that differently to me.
See, I kind of agree with you in that sense, but to me, it's more that like escapist fantasy is different to fantasy as a genre. If that makes sense, it's like if something isn't a fantasy genre, but you can escape into it because it's kind of playing out in your mind, and you can kind of hand wave things and control things. That kind of makes it become more fantasy. If that makes sense.
Yeah. What about you, Brian, June?
I kind of see it as like anything that bends the rules of what we perceive as reality. It's like anything that takes our reality and changes it in some way or another so that it's different, but it's still parallel. And obviously there's things that go a lot further and create entirely new realities. But I think that just anything that takes what we see as reality and changes it in some way to make it different is fantasy to me.
I like that. I can see that. Yeah. That's it kind of goes with the thing that I was saying, like the escapism sort of thing, but you can bend the rules of what we know.
Yeah exactly.
What about you, June?
I've been trying to think about it because fantasy is a very broad term, because it covers everything which is, well, fantastical, everything which, because even in even for more realistic stories, shall we say, there's not a defining line. Like James Bond, for instance, is that fantasy? Jumping the shark, is that fantasy? What level? We have this very sword and sorcery image when we think of fantasy.
Yeah.
But like, is that just because we have more specific names for anyone else? Like Star Trek may be fantasy, but it's also science fiction. But if I say I'm thinking of a fantasy world, we think of like
dragons and castles and Game of Thrones kind of thing.
Castles. Exactly, that sort of thing. I honestly don't know how I would define it.
There's things that blur the line as well.
Yeah, like for me, fantasy is something with, I'd say, on a level, bright fantastical elements. It's something that feels fantastic. Like, I wouldn't describe Game of Thrones as a fantasy world in my own head because it feels too, for lack of a word, not fantastical enough.
Yeah.
Like, it feels dark and more down to earth even.
See,
Yeah.
Even though it's a setting with dragons and White Walkers and all that shit.
because in
However,
Latin,
just for a second,
go on.
let me bring up the concept of Warhammer.
Oh my god.
Yes.
because like Warhammer very much sits in that to me, that middle line between fantasy and science fiction, and
100%.
fiction as a larger concept, because it is you have those science fiction elements, but then you have things that are very much more fantasy, like the warp, which
like there are literal demons and magic. And the whole point of them in setting is that they don't obey the laws of physics. That's the whole point of them, is that they are nonsensical. And Warhammer, for all of its dark, edgy shit that it tries to do, like it has basically coined the phrase grimdark. And yet, there's this weird, bizarre thing of grimdark, okay, but we're having the bright blue people fight the bright red people with chainsaw swords.
Yeah.
See,
Swords, while demons are summoned.
Because everyone's there a fucking edgelord.
Yeah.
Like, everything's an edgelord, but everything's also so bright. The Imperial fists are colored yellow. They look like Bob the Builder. like
it's like you've heard of like
You
pastel
paint them
golf.
that
Get
way.
ready for like pastel edgelord.
fucking
yeah,
hell.
exactly.
Me.
Pastel
Anyway.
edgelord is 40k.
That's Atlas, let's be honest, right? Pastel edge. But the thing is, the idea of fantasy comes from like, obviously, this is me going more into like a scientific way of it, and I'm so sorry. I am a science nerd. I have a degree.
Please.
Please nut out on us.
It comes from it's the word, it translates, because it's originally a Greek word, but it translates to fantasia, which is imagination and appearance. So it's something that you can get from your imagination that you can make into a type of reality, if that makes sense. Because it's Fantanasian, something like that. It's Fantasian is the original word. I'm pronouncing that wrong. I'm butchering it. I'm sorry if anyone knows Greek and Latin. Sorry. But it just basically translates to imagination make visible. That's it. That's what it translates to. So it's a whole idea that, but over like over history, it has changed. So I think the way that we all have different definitions of it makes sense. Because it is a thing that is different to everybody's individual imagination, because nobody's the same.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes it kind of mystical and magical, because I've never played a D&D campaign or a game that's ever been exactly the same point per point, you know? Unless somebody's copied a video game of somebody else, but that's beside the point.
At that point, that's plagiarism.
That's plagiarism. Yeah. Get it onto Turn In. Let's go. Right?
But no, like actually,
Talk to
like
me about Turn It In. I've got 3 assignments in the next 2 weeks.
Oh, no.
But no, like interestingly, like that definition of fantasy kind of actually fits into one of the stories that I'm writing that I really want to publish at some point. Where like the setting of the story is basically the center of a multiverse. And it's a multiverse of multiverses, where basically you have like the central world that was gifted the power to create other dimensions, basically. They don't know they have this power, but like every story that gets told will kind of flicker another universe into existence. And the more people that kind of tell that story, the stronger the world is and the longer it will last, kind of thing. So like, you know, a 2-hour daydream, it will flicker in and out of existence like in a flash. But, you know, Lord of the Rings, for example, would have its own universe that like keeps going forever, because like people are always talking about it, always thinking about it, also always retelling it, always reading it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But then you get like little kind of like branches off of that, where essentially you have fan fiction as alternate universes that do exist, that some will flicker in and out. So like basically every universe is like this kind of firework of different universes.
It kind of reminds me of the idea of like the Mandela effect and conspiracy theories and things like that, because most of them are things that we've created with our imagination that is so spoke about that people start to believe it.
Yeah.
And that also ultimately could be considered a type of fantasy, because it is something that's considerably talked about that's just like, well, wait, is it?
Yeah.
Or it's corporate gaslighting in the case of some cases.
Gaslighting, let's go.
Yeah.
No, I'm being serious. Fruit of the Loom is just straight
I
up like, it's like, there was never a cornucopia. I literally have a piece of clothing with it on, so no.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, but the more fantastical things, less the conspiracy theories that are just, you know, sad.
Yeah. fantastical, like when I think of fantasy, I feel like in my head it always seems to be something with like magical bright colors, and I don't, that's just the first thing I think of, even if it's like a dark or dreary world. It's like, yeah,
that, like, I kind of agree with you on that, because it's like when I want to read a fantasy book, it's a very different mindset to me just wanting to read a work of fiction. Like, if I just want to read a work of fiction, you know, I might read something with a zombie apocalypse, or, you know, a science fiction novel. But if I want to read fantasy, I want, you know, wizards and spellcasters and, you know...
I feel like Fallout kind of comes into that kind of grey territory, because it technically is an adaptation of our universe that with things that didn't happen, and then it goes to a different timeline, but it also kind of has a lot of that science fiction side of it, where it's an alternate universe rather than a magical mystical thing, you know?
Yeah. Like, it's very grounded in science, even though some of it is a bit ridiculous.
Yeah. What
like,
is your guys'
favorite
fantasy series?
Oh, I mean, I have to say, oh, that's a tough one. But I'm gonna have to say this isn't exactly a series, and so I feel like I'm cheating. But Discworld.
No, that
I
counts.
absolutely adore Terry Pratchett's Discworld, even though it's more of a setting than a series. Like, just because there are reoccurring characters to pop up in various things, namely death, of course. But like, the stories are all so different, and that they can't really be said to be a series. Like, I mean,
I consider
there's the Guard series within that, but like, that's nearly entirely unrelated to, say, I don't know, pyramids or vampires.
I like that. I like that answer. Right?
It's a bit of a cop-out, but I'd say probably like Lord of the Rings, just for the simple fact that it has spawned so many subsequent universes in itself.
It is genre-defining for a reason.
It really is. Like, it is the OG fantasy world.
Fun fact, I haven't actually finished Lord of the Rings.
Oh my god.
Also, like, I feel like The Hobbit into the Lord of the Rings is, like, one of the very few examples of, like, a low-ish stakes adventure, then, like, evolving to be a high-stakes one kind of thing.
Yeah. I see what you
Because people do get their kind of happy ending for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see what you mean. What about you then, Autumn? What's your favourite?
So, see, I changed my mind a lot, but I think one of the most consistent ones I've had is the Septimus Heap series by Angie Sage.
Oh.
Like, basically, whilst everyone was reading Harry Potter in school, I was reading this series. And, like, one of the things that I love in it is the magic system itself in it.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those ones where it's a weird mix, but, like, it's basically, like, you're on the scale of, like, hard magic system to soft magic system.
Yeah.
I describe this as, like, an oobleck magic system. Where it's, like, a little bit soft and nebulous, but the second you kind of look into something, there are hard and defined rules for that specific thing.
Yeah.
It's, like, in the first book, which is literally just called Magic, it's established that, like, if you're doing a copying illusion, the illusory image is going to be a mirror image of whatever you're trying to cast, and someone who knows about these spells will, like, be able to detect that, like, hey, the writing on that boat is backwards, that's the illusion. And that mysterious cloud of fog is probably where the actual boat is, kind of thing. But, like, there's even, like, little bits of world building. It's, like, where we're introduced to 2 different invisibility spells. And everyone underneath this one invisibility spell can see everyone else under this invisibility spell. But another character is like, no, I already know an invisibility spell, and uses a different one, and can't see the other people. And it's really interesting. Also, there's that section, there's, like, other interesting things of, like, ghosts can only go where they walked in life before. And the weird loopholes that come from that is like, well, I was on this boat as when I was living, so therefore I can go anywhere on the water in this boat as long as I don't leave it.
Yeah.
Or, wizards will occasionally write down a spell on their breakfast toast because, they have it in their head, they'll write it down on the toast. And if they don't transfer it to something else, that spell will just kind of disappear out of existence in that form.
Yeah.
I like that. So, see, to me, there's like a couple. Like, I really like the Dragon Prince. Like, I really like that.
Yes.
But one of my favorite. What? Hello, Alexa. Go away. Right. Sorry. It's telling me I disconnect to the internet. Thank you, Alexa.
Amazing.
I really like Shadowhunters. I really like the world of Shadowhunters and the way it was made and the way it was built and the idea of it. And I may or may not be gay for one of the characters. Anyway, but it's the whole idea that I like how the magic works in that with the, like, how they have the glyphs that they have to write on their skin to activate and things like that. I liked it because when I was younger, it was different. And it was quite unique for what they did. If that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah.
No. Like, I get that. It's like another, like, fantasy world that I think is really well done is, like, the world of Percy Jackson and the Olympians.
Yeah. I also like,
Yes.
have you guys ever seen Once Upon a Time?
Yes.
Because that took fairy tales and went on its whole, like, tangent in the way it was. And that was quite cool how it was done. Because it showed that these characters had more substance.
Honestly, I love things that play with, like, the traditional fairy tales. I think that's why I used to really like Ever After High when I was little.
Yeah.
But Arcane cast as a fantasy series, do we think?
Yes. It's got magic and exploding crystals.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah. What was the... There's also the other side of fantasy, which is like what we do in the shadows and fucking gay pirate show.
Oh my god, yes.
But they kind of a more comedy fantasy, and I kind of like how they have that extreme to it.
Okay, but comedy fantasy is great. Like, lest
Suck
we
the
forget
blood of
Monty
humans,
Python
but
and the Holy
humans
Grail.
are on drugs, and now I'm a wizard. Anyway, that's my favorite line from that.
Oh my god. I still need to watch What We Do in the Shadows.
It is so stupid.
It's literally like top of my watch list, but I keep going back to other things that I've already watched.
And then it's like, I'm sure you'll agree, Bart, as well. It goes from like one extreme, and then you get to like the fantasy worlds of like Has Been Hotel and Hell of a Boss and things like that.
Oh yeah.
And I think I like the idea that fantasy isn't a one-trick horse.
Yeah.
There are
like,
so many different things.
With Has Been as an example, I do consider it fantasy because it is a suspension of belief. Like, it is essentially not the real world. It is something entirely different, but still with, again, that human aspect.
Yeah.
Like, there are parallels to our world in Has Been, and that's why I love it so much.
It's, I think...
Can you imagine, though, if, like, just, like, out of, like, every bit of media to depict hell, that, like, Has Been and Hell of a Boss actually got it right?
Wait,
yeah.
I've just realised that Ark, the survival game, has an animated series since when? Hello?
What?
Oh, it's on Paramount Plus, apparently. It came out in March. I didn't know that was a thing. We have a question. Sarah's asked, my question is, what is the most detailed, unusual character in any series and why?
Ooh.
We can simplify it to what character is the most interesting to you?
Ew.
I really like Hunter in that whole house because that backstory is so fucking complex, and like there was things that I kind of was like, what the fuck?
Unusual
I'd probably
character.
say like somebody like Annabeth from Percy Jackson for me.
Yeah.
It's very
Actually,
powerful.
like on the subject of Annabeth, I actually really like how they adapted her for the Disney Plus series.
I haven't actually seen it yet, but I've heard really good things about it.
Yes, it's like so many people are mad about like specifically the changes they made to Annabeth, but I'm like,
Yeah.
I think it does more for what the original like goals of her character were.
Yeah.
Like it's more faithfully aligned with that than being faithfully aligned with how she appears in the books.
Yeah.
I see that. I get that. My main reason for always playing a dwarf character is because I enjoy doing the voice. Fair enough, Dan. Fair
Love
enough.
it. Yeah.
Like, that tells me stuff about you. That means, like, you like doing the voice. You enjoy speaking as your character. Okay.
Yeah.
You get more into the roleplay side of things. You enjoy things being more comedic. Like, that tells me a lot of shit. Obviously, it doesn't give me a full picture, but, like...
It tells you a lot about a person.
It makes me think you know... It makes me think, at least you believe, you can do a Scottish accent.
Final question I have for you guys.
Hold on. I still need to answer the question of like the
Oh, I
like,
apologize.
interesting
I
character.
apologize. Go on.
Like this is gonna be a really weird pick, but the Admiral in the Unwind series.
The what?
Ooh.
So Unwind is a really interesting like I guess it's science fiction. That kind of it's somewhat psychological horror, but it kind of looks into the pro-life, pro-choice debate. Where basically the setting of the world is there is a future where a war was fought over, like this argument, where basically it's now a world where you can't get rid of a child, but you can basically send off a child between the ages of 13 to 18 to essentially be completely harvested as an organ donor, which is really dark. Yes,
I've heard of that. Yeah,
but the Admiral is a really interesting character because they are someone who fought on the side of like preventing abortions, and I realized this is really deep to get in towards the end of this conversation.
Fine.
But yeah, so they were like pro-life, and then their son was basically made out in school to be a bit of a troublemaker, so was basically pressurized into like having their son essentially killed. And then basically spends the rest of his life trying to atone for that by rescuing children who are going to be sent away. And like the first book, somewhat spoilers, is literally him basically getting in contact with every single person who has received a part from his son.
Yeah.
And basically gathering them all up to hold a birthday party for his son in honor of his memory.
Whoa,
And I love that as a character that, like, you can just tell how their motivations have changed as the world around them has changed. Because you can tell they're someone who wanted to preserve life and then was forced basically against what they were fighting for into taking like something that was very precious to them and how they chose to atone for that.
Yeah.
And I love those sorts of character stories.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
But honestly, like Unwind as a series is amazing.
Is that the one you've been trying to tell me to look at?
Yes.
Yeah, fair enough. I think you've been telling me since I first met you.
Yes, I have.
Right, you guys have one final thing you'd like to say then about fantasy and things like that?
I like fantasy.
Oh my god.
No, honestly, I love fantasy because it's a way to kind of get a look into how someone's brain works.
Absolutely. Like, one thing I love about D&D especially is seeing specifically my players' characters, and that's something you can never get really with anything else. Like, when you play any game that has class bases and customization options and similar, you get to see what another person likes, what stuff they enjoy, or what stuff appeal to them for them to make those choices. D&D, I think, is a great example of that, and I think it's an amazing way. And though D&D is obviously the main fun of it comes from who you play with, and certain groups work better than others, I think you can tell a lot about a person if they do play D&D and you ask them about a character, what do they talk about first? Like they talk about stats or spells, cool moments, backstories. Like, what led them to choose that character? What led them to choose those options? Each thing is a decision that, like, and because it leads to every character, every human fighter even with a tragic backstory being different. And I think that's fucking amazing, to be honest.
I love that.
It's like, I know that, like, when it comes to, like, making a character for myself in D&D, one of the things that I like to go for is, like, a fun concept that kind of fits in with the world. And, like, you'll kind of see that in the characters I played. Like, in Dana, they are a Earth Genasi born to Dwarven parents, who was exiled because, like, naturally, just as part of being an Earth Genasi, they have, you know, like, veins of rock through them, and one of them happens to be Moonstone, which, when that's been the apocalyptic event, kind of a bad omen, as people think. Or then you look at, what is it called? Do you know what's the other campaign called? I've forgotten it. It's been so long since we played.
Into the Deep. It's the deep, isn't it, Doc?
Something deep. Yep. Rolling in the deep, whatever. Whatever it is. Like, my character is, you know, a elderly dragonborn who just has a whole bunch of mushrooms growing on them because they just left society. And they're just like, yes, these are my friends now.
Right, final question. It's a very silly question. I apart from the goose one, I have the book called Adventuring with Pride and Adventuring with Pride, Queer We Go Again. Would you guys like to do that campaign with me at some point?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Perfect. I bought them at Comic-Con.
Also, Queer We Go Again is such a good title.
Yeah. I love that.
It's just queer. Oh, the first one's called Adventuring with Pride, the First Outing.
Ooh.
Oh my god. I love that. Love me some good puns.
I backed it on Kickstarter and then got the Queer We Go Again at Comic-Con. So, but yeah, that is the end of the first ever Cafe and Co-cast. Oh my god.
I love the dip right at the end before going into something so lighthearted.
Yeah.
Perfect.
That's how it should be.